5. So welcome everybody to the first Research Matters in 2021. This is the January 19th, 2021 Research Matters. We're lucky enough to have Eriko Iwatate here with us today to do a quick update on clinicaltrials.gov. So before we get into our main topic, I'm going to turn it over to Eriko. Eriko, take it away.
Thanks, Josh. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Eriko. I work in a regulatory support office with Resija Nambia. So today, I'm going to give a quick review of ct.gov so that we are all on the same page, and I give some important updates, metrics, and some useful tips at the end. So let's review what ct.gov is. So ct.gov is a clinical trial registry and results database run by National Library of Medicine at NIH. So there are two interfaces. One is public interface on the top. Anyone can look up the trial for any reason. The other interface is a protocol registration and results system, or PRS, which requires university-specified login. And there's so this is where responsible party register and post result. So this is very much like a ERB system. The goal is to increase the transparency and reduce the publication bias. Basic three functions are investigator to register the trial, update the trial, and report the summary results in tabular format. So now, why do we have to register and report results? Why? This is why. So many agencies and organizations are now requiring ct.gov reporting. So since I talked about each requirement in detail in my last talk back in last June and July, I'm just going to highlight three main reasons, three big why we need to register and results reported. So one of the most compelling reasons for registering clinical trial is the International Committee of Medical Journal Editor publication policy that require all clinical trial for all intervention to be registered before enrollment of the first participants. So if you want to publish your study, you need to register, because most journal will reject your submission, so your manuscript will likely not to go to peer review. And NIH dissemination policy require all NIH-funded clinical trial to be registered and results reported. And most importantly, federal law, FDA Amendment Act 801 and final rule requires that FDA regulated applicable clinical trial to be registered and results reported. So the general requirement under the final rule are that responsible parties, so typically PI, for applicable clinical trial must register on clinicaltrial.gov no later than 21 days after enrollment of the first participant. So trial must be updated at least once a year, so similar to continuing review in ERB, and some information in the record requiring more timely update, such as study start date, primary, and study completion date, should be revised from anticipated date to actual date within 30 days of the changes. So again, these are required by law. And the final rule requires summary results for both primary, secondary outcome that are pre-specified in the IRB approved protocol, and all adverse events must be submitted no later than 1 year after the trial primary completion date. So if your protocol happened to list 20 exploratory outcome under secondary outcome, those results, if they are collected, must be reported, and ct.gov reviewer will actually verify it by cross-checking the protocol. So, and please note that primary completion date is the date of the last study visit where data was collected for the primary outcome. So investigators often get confused with this definition. So this date is not the date of data analysis completion or journal publication, study completion, or ERB study closure. None of that. Again, it is the last day of data collection for the primary outcome. So that's when 12 months clock starts for the deadline to do the results posting. So whatever day it is, your results are due within 1 year from that day. So primary completion date is your time clock. So please be sure to update the date in timely manner and give yourself enough time to work on the results reporting. Because what I see is that, so there's a discrepancy in study status in ERB, like study CR and clinicaltrial.gov record. And then I contact the investigator to reconcile. Then I learned study was actually completed a year ago, but the primary completion date in ct.gov was never updated. So when you change the primary completion date, like backdate it, say like January 2020, the record immediately become non-compliance because remember, results are due 1 year from the primary completion date. So this is very important. And suddenly your trial are facing serious consequences and penalties. So many of you are already aware that there are financial penalties for non-compliance. So U.S. government could impose $12,103 per day per trial for any non-compliance. So this fine schedule was initially introduced by FDA Amendment Act in 2007, but it is beginning to be enforced after 10 plus year of grace period, like this year. So FDA recently released a guidance document describing the process of collecting fine from investigator. So this is, pretty good drastic fine and pretty good reason why we want to stay in compliance. And here are other consequences for late registration and results reporting for your references. So we can assist investigator be compliant with the federal regulation. So we ran the ct.gov program at the beginning of last summer. So we are continuing to make an improvement. So currently we offer group 101 training. We assist with registration, results reporting, resolving PRS major reviewer comments. We also this year started office hour by appointment this year. So for more information about our program, feel free to email us. So now let's talk about metrics. So how are we doing as an institution? So according to FDAAA Non-Compliance Trial Tracker website, our compliance rate proportion was 68.2% in May. So this website actually takes data from publicct.gov interface. So this is exactly what the public sees in terms of our compliance. So in January, so just last week, we are 100% compliant. Thank you everyone for working really hard to make this happen. So important to note that this 100% compliance is for FDA regulated applicable clinical trial. So it actually does not include NIH funded trial that are not FDA applicable clinical trial or trial that are voluntary registered. So we generated own metrics that include all trial and their compliance directly from ct.gov internal database that are only accessible to institutions administrator. So this shows overall real-time compliance for all UT Southwestern record. So blue histogram is the total number of trial that is registered under UT Southwestern account. So green is the number of record with no problem, so no issue. And the orange one is the problem record that are not FDA regulated trial, but has been flagged in the system with some sort of errors, which must be corrected. And the red one is the FDA regulated trial, and their trials are currently under ct.gov review. So it has not been accepted yet. So our goal is to continue with 100% compliant in non-compliance tracker website. So this one, we want to keep it this way. And the orange one here and red one to be as low as we can. So we will be sharing ct.gov metric every research matter. So we'll be showing that. Okay, so I want to end with some helpful tips to the registration and results reporting. So according to Deborah Darin, a former director of CT.gov for past 13 years, CT.gov registration and results posting are scientific tasks rather than administrative tasks, requiring basic statistical, epidemiological knowledge, especially for the results reporting. So with that in mind, here are the tips for registration. Initiate CT.gov registration prior to ERB submission. This is very important. Because according to NIH estimate, it can take up to 10 hours and review cycle may take up to 7 days. And then again, PI, COI, whoever understands the clinical trial designed to do the outcome measure module, because this module is considered scientific module. And for results, again, start early. Enter results 3 to 4 months before the due date. NIH said it can take up to 50 hours. And it, of course, depends on the complexity of the trial. Multi-arm, multi-stage, multi-outcome takes much longer than the single-arm, single-site pilot trial with sample size, right? So now, before you begin entering summary results for the outcome, we recommend investigator to look for example for outcome description at the public site. So you can see the outcome measure description that CT.gov has previously accepted. So this is a really great way to learn how to enter data and pass the CT.gov review, because CT.gov follows very strict standardized review criteria. And again, so whoever understands the study, and then whoever actually analyzed the data to do the results section, because now you need to summarize raw data, derive outcome measure in aggregated format, choose appropriate unit of measure, measure type, and associated precision. This can get really complex and it can overwhelm you. So, and also please remember that CT.gov records are linked to publication via NCT number. Therefore, it is critical that the CT.gov is up to date and list accurate data so the publication and CT.gov record agrees. And lastly, so please always complete the CT.gov submission cycle. So as you can see in this figure, record must be marked as an entry completed by whoever entered the data. And note that anyone on the study team can assist with CT.gov reporting, but responsible party, so PI, needs to verify the data entry and submit it to the CT.gov as it is required by law. And here are, if you have any question, here are the list of contact person for the CT.gov issue. And I'm including a selected list of resource. So if you have a question, email us. I am going to pass to Kelechi or Josh. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. We didn't see feedback. Erica, there you go. Okay, Erica was muted. I think the feedback has gone away. And I would just like to personally applaud and celebrate the efforts of Erica and Rosija and everybody in the HRPP who's helping to support the CT.gov compliance. Getting to 100% compliance is just amazing. And it's just wonderful to see us getting to that point. So I believe all of you are now going to be seeing my desktop. There's just a couple quick announcements, and then we'll be turning it over to Kelechi. So just give me 1 second as I continue to orient. Okay, so first announcement, our normal Microsoft Teams live events housekeeping. You should have already seen a comment from Jasmine in the chat. Again, just a reminder that none of you can unmute yourself. So if you do have any questions, make sure to type your question in the Q&A, and then HRPP staff will be monitoring those and will answer them accordingly. The slides will be sent after this session, and the video is immediately available if you click on the same link that you clicked on to get into this meeting. This is recorded, and once we end this session, if you click back on it, you can watch this again. And then the last thing in our housekeeping items is that attendance certificates will be sent to those who logged in with a valid email address, meaning that you're signed in and joined through Teams. If you join through Teams but you're not signed into an account that Microsoft recognizes, you won't get a certificate automatically from us. If you need a certificate, email hrpp@utsouthwestern.edu and we can process that. The next item is last week there was an email sent to our news listserv on January 13th, which was Wednesday. And it was a courtesy reminder that study teams need to monitor and ensure that city education remains up to date. The reason that we sent this courtesy reminder is that our new policy, and was new as of January 2017, had a compliance date of January 2018. And when that compliance date went into effect, there was this 3-year expiration for everybody as they were completing their appropriate city training, whether that was just the HSP, Human Subject Protection, or GCP, Good Clinical Practice. And you can look at our policy to determine when that GCP is applicable. If you don't remember, just a quick refresher, if you're working on any FDA regulated research or in a federally funded study that is considered to be a clinical trial. So the problem is because we have that 3-year expiration and most people did their education recertifying in January or early 2018, we have a lot of research staff whose training is expiring within the next 3 to 6 months. That is causing a big disruption in our pre-reviews, the IRB reviews, and it's slowing reviews down. So as you're looking at submitting a new study, submitting a continuing review, please review the email. If you aren't on that news listserv, we can get you hooked up and get you logged in. We can send that content out to you, but that email had various ways, including individual users identifying their own education, a report that is available to anybody with access to the UT Southwestern systems that will show all the education for everybody who's completed it, and just utilizing the system itself to ensure that as you're sending things into the office for review, that there's nobody whose training is expired that you don't already know about. Another just quick announcement, we've been seeing an increase in submissions, continuing review submissions, at least right now, where the expiration date is not until April, May, or June. And so unless it's absolutely necessary, please do not submit any continuing reviews more than 60 days in advance of the expiration date. We understand sometimes a PI might be going on maternity leave and that person just wants to get their report into the IRB for review. But if we review an item within 30 days of that original expiration date, then we can maintain that date. It's something that guidance refers to as an anniversary date. And what that ultimately does is it prevents approval cycles that are less than 1 year long, or as the IRB originally approved the submission. And that is both our goal and hopefully your goal. We don't necessarily want to review studies more than once a year. Sometimes that if you submit something right now and that expiration date is not until May or June, then you're really only the prior term comes out to be about anywhere from 6 to 7 months, sometimes even less. We don't necessarily want to review items more often than is necessary. So just keep that in mind that if you submit something early, we are going to review and approve it and get it out of our queues. But that may mean that we're reviewing and approving items more than is necessary. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelechi, and she's going to be talking to us today about non-human and non-regulated research submissions. Take it away, Kelechi.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. So this presentation is going to go over the submission and review process for non-human and non-regulated research submissions. So this would be the Y1 and Y2 forms that you guys are familiar with. So next slide. So non-human and non-regulated research submissions are activities that do not meet the definition of human research, human subjects research, or regulated research under federal regulations. And so these submissions do not require IRB approval or oversight. However, they do get a determination letter from the HRPP, so they need to be submitted to us regardless. Whatever determination will be, the PIs will get an email from us letting them know that the activity is either human subjects research, non-regulated, or non-human research. Okay. Performance site approval is required for these kind of submissions. So if you indicate in the Y1 and Y2 forms that the activity would be either at Children's, UT Southwestern, Parkland, Scottish Rite, and so on, you will, after you have gotten the determination letter from us, you will need to reach out to the research admin office at the individual institutions to obtain performance site approval. It is the responsibility of the investigator to submit those submissions to the HRPP prior to initiation, and you can definitely contact our office for guidance or advice with this submission so that you are in accordance with the federal regulations and the UT Southwestern policy. Is this activity research? So in this step-by-step process will help you determine if the activity is research. Basically, if it is research, then you would just need to go to EIRB to complete a full research submission via those through EIRB. However, you want to go through this process to help you determine if your project is indeed non-human subject research or non-regulated, or if it is research as well. So you want to ask yourself in the first step, is this a systematic investigation designed to contribute generalizable knowledge? And if it is not, then the activity will not be considered research according to OHRP regulations. And I know sometimes people will say, it depends on the submission, of course. I mean, if you're going to publish, publishing doesn't necessarily determine if it's research or not. At the end of the day, you want to ask yourself, what is the intent of the submission we're trying to do? It's trying to change a process at your individual institutions, or is it going to be something that will be implemented beyond UT Southwestern or beyond Children's or Parkland and so on and so forth. So that would be the first step in that assessment. The second step is, does this research involve human subjects? You want to ask, would the investigator obtain data from individuals through interaction with the subjects or through intervention? And will the investigator obtain both private and identifiable information? A lot of times when these are submitted, especially the non-human submissions, we always, the first question is, are you collecting identifiable data, or will they contain PHI or another HIPAA identifiers? And if the answer is yes to that information, or basically will you be contacting patients to obtain their data? If the answer is yes, then this will require IRB approval. So it is research and will need to be submitted through EIRB. If not, and the research does not involve human subjects, then it will be regarded as a non-human submission. Is the activity human subject according to FDA regulations? So the assessment of if an activity is research is done according to FDA and OHRP regulations. So in the previous slide, when we asked, is this research according to OHRP regulations, we're asking if it's a systematic investigation designed to contribute to generalizable knowledge. In this case, if the activity is human research according to FDA regulations, we're asking, does the activity involve the use of a drug in the course of medical practice, or the use of a device that will be used to evaluate the safety and effectiveness of that device? Will any of the data from that research with the use of a drug or device be submitted to the FDA? Will the FDA be used on one or more humans? And if the answer is yes to these questions, then this is definitely going to meet the definition of research according to FDA regulations and will require IRB approval. Otherwise, then it will go as a non-human submission. Last step is funding. So if the UT Southwestern or any of the affiliated institutions indicated in Y1 and Y2 form will receive direct funding to conduct human research, and then that will be considered human research according to DHHS. An example of these funding sources could be the NIH, CDC, or Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality. So the assessment I previously mentioned is available on the Y1 and Y2 forms that will help you determine whether the activity is human research or not. I believe in those forms, if the answer is yes to any of these questions, then it'll direct you to submit them through EIRB. Otherwise, you can move forward with the submission process as a non-human and non-regulated research submission. So to explain the Y1 form, the non-human research. So this is any research that is going to obtain data or specimens from a repository that is going to be received already identified. An example of this is if you there's a national database of some sort that has this data where the PI would have to log in and obtain data from that entity. If that data will be already received, identified, then as non-human. If the investigator will obtain anonymous pre-existing data, which means that there is no way for the investigator to readily determine who is who in the data and or specimen. There is no identifiable information attached to that data or specimen, and that will qualify as non-human. And then if they're going to obtain coded or pre-existing data, so if they have to reach out to someone to give them the data, and then the entity will sign a de-identification agreement confirming that the investigator is not going to receive any identifiable data, it's going to be purely de-identified, then this will also qualify as non-human. Also, deceased subjects research, if the data you're going to collect will be from individuals who are deceased, then that'll also qualify as non-human. This item number 7 on page Y1 also has that guide to select what you will be doing if it is indeed non-human. Y2 submissions, this is non-regulated research. So these are activities such as quality improvement, health surveillance, case reports, community outreach, program evaluation, customer satisfaction surveys, class projects, or medical quality assurance. The description and definition for each of these activities are on the Y2 form. It kind of guides you and lets you know which one of these applies to your submission. For instance, the quality improvements submission will be any activity designed to bring about an immediate or positive change in the delivery of healthcare in a particular setting. Most of the time when we see this kind of submissions, it will be something that's specific to a process in, say, Parkland or Children's, or maybe here at UT Southwestern. You would indicate what the current process is right now, what you're trying to improve and or change. And if you're going to be collecting data, and if you are, it'll have to be identified or aggregate data to help improve that healthcare delivery at the specific institution, and how the plan is to implement them. Okay, so when you are ready to make a submit to us, you complete your Y1 and Y2 forms and email it to hrpp@utsouthwestern.edu. The program manager will assign it to the senior regulatory analyst team. So the senior regulatory analyst team are the ones that are responsible for the Y1 and Y2 submissions, myself included. We would conduct the review of the submission and work with any of the institutions listed here in the first page of the Y1 and Y2 forms. So as I mentioned earlier, performance site approval is required. And so whenever we get a submission, we would reach out to these institutions and show them your submission, and then we want to make sure that they are in agreement that your project is indeed non-human or is indeed non-regulated research. And if there are any questions or any clarification that they need, we would then communicate that with you or the investigator to let them know that this is what, say, Children's is needing from you, this is what, say, Parkland is needing for you for extra information to come to a determination. And next one. And so if everything is resolved and there's an agreement between the two institutions and then that the project is determined to be non-regulated or non-humane, then the investigator will get a determination later like this, and that will be sent to the, it will also have the institution as well when this letter is sent. But that does not take the place of the performance site approval. You want to reach out to them separately to confirm if anything else is needed on your end to initiate this project. But this is what the letter would look like. And if you make a submission, send a submission, and it is determined by the institutions that no, this is research involving human subjects, then we will send an email letting you know that determination to submit through EIRB. And I believe that is everything.
Yes, it is, Kelechi. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
a wonderful presentation. Just as a reminder for everybody, we do have a slight delay between what we are saying and what you are hearing. So we're just going to wait to make sure that if there's any questions, they come in. We did get a question about ct.gov, and Erica responded to that. There's also been one question about the city training and another question about a QI project. If you have any follow-ups on that, please let us know. We do really appreciate when we get questions because we want to make sure that what we're saying is what you're hearing and understanding. So please, if you have any questions and you don't feel comfortable utilizing this chat, reach out to, you can reach out to myself, Kelechi, the HRPP mailbox, or anybody within the HRPP to clarify anything that you may not necessarily feel was absolutely clear. Okay, I am not seeing any new questions pop up. So I'm just going to use a little bit more filler just to make sure nobody was typing anything. So we do have another session coming up in February. I believe that session, off the top of my head and not having looked at the website in more than a week, is on exempt submissions. So we're going to go a little dive into the exempt categories and then how the HRPP processes those, a little bit more detail than we had in the previous discussion. Okay, and after that filler, I'm still not seeing any additional questions. So big thank you to Erico and Kelechi for great presentations, and we will see all of you virtually, in a manner of speaking, in February. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your week.